Christine Brennan just exposed the WNBA in a major way.
Christine Brennan is one of the best sports writers in the country, has been for a long time.
Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge. And to then see this negativity, like why and what should have been done? I look seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it at Iowa. You see these TV ratings.
Legendary sports journalist Christine Brennan just dropped a bombshell expose that has the WNBA scrambling. We're talking about a truth bomb so huge, so devastating, it's allegedly flattened league headquarters and sent everyone from the commissioner's office to jealous vets shaking in their sneakers. This isn't just a hot take, it's a full-scale gutting of the WNBA's credibility regarding their handling of the single biggest star women's basketball has ever seen, Caitlin Clark.
It came out, what she had to say in this book was going to shake the ground of the WNBA. She's been around for a very long time, and she knows the inner and outer workings of this league. Christine Brennan let it be known in multiple interviews that the WNBA was not ready for a superstar like Caitlin Clark.
Christine Brennan isn't just any sports writer, she's one of the absolute best in the country. A veteran who's been covering the sports landscape for decades. She knows the WNBA inside and out, understanding its history, its struggles, and its key players. So when Brennan speaks, the sports world listens. Her new book isn't some fluffy, feel-good story. It's a deep, investigative dive, tearing into how badly the league bungled the once-in-a-lifetime Caitlin Clark moment. This is scorched earth journalism, and the aftershocks are still rattling the entire WNBA.
The thing I don't get, Christine, is that in the case of Tiger and in the case of Jordan, the other players and the league around them, in Tiger's case, the PGA Tour, realized that a rising tide raises all boats and were incredibly supportive of Tiger and Jordan. With Caitlin, it seems like, for whatever reason, she's polarizing. Like she's been hit with more flagrant fouls than any player ever this year. They tried to come at you when you were writing a story and said, don't ask questions about why people don't like Caitlin Clark. But I'm going to ask you, Christine, why is she polarizing in your opinion? Why do people not embrace the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark?
The core of Brennan's shocking expose, the WNBA was simply not prepared, not even close. Despite seeing the writing on the wall for years, watching Clark's phenomenon explode in the Big Ten, seeing her TV ratings shatter records at Iowa, the league leadership was somehow completely caught off guard. They saw the tsunami coming and allegedly did absolutely nothing to get ready. Brennan argues Caitlin Clark is arguably more important to the WNBA than even Tiger Woods was to men's golf. And yet, instead of celebrating this, the league was reportedly plagued by baffling negativity and a stunning lack of foresight.
One of the big points in the book, I deal with all of this and my research and reporting, because I was perplexed as well. I mean, this is the greatest moment ever for the WNBA. Yep. We wish it happened sooner. Of course we wish it happened sooner. There were amazing players who, as you know, both you guys know, were toiling in obscurity, the male-dominated mainstream sports media ignoring them.
Want to understand just how clueless the league brass allegedly was? Brennan reveals a jaw-dropping anecdote from her book. The day after Caitlin Clark officially declared for the 2024 WNBA draft, a moment everyone outside the league knew was seismic, Brennan reportedly called a senior league official for their take. You'd expect excitement, hyperbole, maybe even confetti cannons over the phone, right? Think again. This league suit with a straight face reportedly told her that Clark's arrival was the biggest thing since Maya Moore. Now, with all due respect to the legend Maya Moore, outside of dedicated hoop fans, she was practically invisible to mainstream America. Most folks couldn't have picked her out of a grocery line. Comparing Clark, who was selling out college arenas nationwide and pulling millions of viewers, to Maya Moore shows a fundamental, almost willful misunderstanding of the cultural force Clark had already become.
From home like everybody else. And I think, guys, that actually helped me understand as a journalist the fascination, because I've covered a lot over my career and been very fortunate to be at Wimbledon's and Super Bowls and Tiger Woods and you name it, I've covered it. And I'm so lucky to have done that. And I found myself fascinated, like, who is this? And And I'm getting text messages from guys who would never have watched a second of women's basketball. Good guys, they want their daughters to play sports. I mean, good people, but just And they're texting, "Are you there? I'm watching. Are you seeing this performance?" And that told me something, that I actually was very helpful to be at home watching it versus being on press row talking to a bunch of other journalists, that okay, there's something going on in the country here. And it's everyone's fascinated, and people are standing in line for hours in the cold around the Big Ten, this barnstorming tour. And it's all about a basketball player who happens to be a woman.
Brennan, with her decades of experience covering everything from Super Bowls to Wimbledon and, yes, Tiger Woods, instantly recognized what the league execs allegedly didn't. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another great player entering the draft. She was a cultural avalanche about to bury the stale narratives about the WNBA being a niche sport. While the league brass was reportedly stuck comparing her to past stars who barely moved the needle, Brennan could already see the entire nation strapping in for the Caitlin Clark show. And how did the league allegedly respond to this priceless heads up? They sat on their hands and did absolutely nothing to prepare. It's almost stunning how incompetent you have to be to miss the easiest marketing layup in sports history.
Unauthorized, which is not ominous at all. You want it to be unauthorized because I can tell the truth, unvarnished. Caitlin's quoted throughout the book. She was great answering any question I asked her, but dealing with these important issues. So you've got a 74% black league. We understand this. I mean, I'm white. Ramona, I think you guys are white.
Yeah.
We have no idea what it's like to be black in America. And I say that. Let's be brutally honest here. Here comes a white woman from Iowa, and she's going to be the biggest superstar. Now, absolutely, the spotlight's shining on her. Finally, it's shining on all these other players who deserved it for years but never got it. And that's a wonderful turn of events. But instead of focusing on the positives, sadly, the WNBA players, so many of them, not all.
The stats surrounding Clark's immediate impact are undeniable, yet the league was allegedly caught completely flat-footed. Look at the Indiana Fever's attendance in 2023, hovering around 4,000 fans per game, barely filling a high school gym. Then Caitlin Clark arrives for a preseason warm-up, and suddenly, fans are lined up 2 hours early outside the arena like it's a Taylor Swift concert. Building security was reportedly stunned. They had never seen anything like it. Millions of new viewers tuned into games they'd never watched before. Text messages flew between friends who'd never discussed women's basketball. Caitlin Clark instantly became the hero for millions, and anyone seen opposing her became the villain.
And an antagonist. And I've argued that the NBA could use a little bit more of hero and villain to popularize the sport again. The WNBA does not need that, because for a lot of America, Caitlin Clark is the hero. And anyone that comes to Caitlin Clark's defense is a hero. And everyone that flagrantly fouls her, speaks poorly of her, acts like she's not great is the villain, and then vice versa on that. How big of a part of the story is that when you look at the conflict surrounding Caitlin Clark?
So, how did the WNBA leadership allegedly capitalize on this tidal wave of new fans and unprecedented attention? Did they roll out the red carpet, orchestrate dazzling media campaigns, or lean into the rivalry narratives that sports thrive on? According to Brennan's reporting, absolutely not. They responded like grumpy old neighbors, practically annoyed that all these new eyeballs were finally paying attention. It's as if they preferred their small, quiet pond to suddenly becoming the ocean. Brennan's book lays out a story of a league that was resigned to perpetual backbench status, so used to irrelevance that they couldn't even fathom a world where people genuinely cared about their product.
Absolutely unreal.
We got grown men on talking head shows wanting to fight each other over women's basketball and talking about it, right? We've got all these hot takes about all this going on, Christine. How big of a part of the story is that for you, and is that for this book?
I deal with it for sure in the book. And, I think what we've seen is surprising to me, having covered women's sports as well as men's, for the length of my career.
Perhaps the most damning element Brennan uncovers is the deep-seated jealousy that allegedly simmered beneath the surface. Her book shows a bitterness from players, league officials, and even legacy media figures who seemingly couldn't handle the fact that Caitlin Clark, a rookie, was instantly drawing more crowds, airtime, and sponsors than veterans who had been grinding away for a decade. Suddenly, gyms were packed, ratings were through the roof, and every podcast wanted a piece. All thanks to Clark. Brennan goes into depth on this, noting the dynamic of a white woman from Iowa becoming the biggest superstar in a league that is 74% black, highlighting it as an undeniable factor in the narrative, but emphasizing that Clark's spotlight did ultimately shine on many deserving veteran players who had toiled in obscurity for years.
And here comes Caitlin Clark, and let's say it, and I say it in the book, I'd go into this in depth. A white woman from Iowa in a 74% black league. That's an issue. The book is the first real journalistic look at this entire season and at Caitlin Clark and what she's done and all these issues that are out there. No holds barred. I shy away from nothing.
Instead of celebrating the rising tide that was lifting everyone's boats and attracting corporate partners like never before, the league and reportedly some of its players and coaches responded with cold shoulders, dirty fouls, and snide comments. Refs seemed to swallow whistles during games involving Clark. Media scribes allegedly started cranking out think pieces complaining about her popularity. Brennan highlights specific instances where figures like Diana Taurasi, Breanna Stewart, Cheryl Swoops, Cheryl Reeve, and Gino Auriemma seemed to minimize or criticize her, which Brennan found stunning. While Clark is reportedly tough and feisty and not a victim on the court, this group's negative remarks and alleged mischaracterizations were baffling to many.
And I look at the way players like Diana Taurasi, Breanna Stewart, Cheryl Swoops with her flurry of falsehoods, Cheryl Reeve, the Olympic coach, Gino Auriemma, really tried to minimize her and were very critical of her. That stunned me. You should be saying, this is great. You don't have to cheer for her. You guard her. You play tough. She's not a victim. She loves to throw it at people. She's feisty and tough out there. And that makes her, I think, even more appealing to so many people. But for this group of people to want to say such negative things and be so wrong about her, okay, fine. It's a free country. You can do what you want. But what she's doing by going into the WNBA.
The craziest part? According to Brennan, all of this was glaringly obvious to anyone paying attention before Clark even officially joined the league. Her 4 years at Iowa were a masterclass in building a national brand, breaking records, selling out arenas, turning non-basketball fans into avid viewers. Her massive, engaged fan base was clearly ready to follow her to the WNBA, buying tickets and merchandise the second she turned pro. Everyone with half a clue could see this coming. Everyone, apparently, except the people whose actual job it is to grow women's basketball, who reportedly couldn't be bothered to look up from their spreadsheets and acted like gatekeepers, even as the gates were being blown off their hinges.
So Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge to men's golf. And to then see this negativity, the next question would be, or your viewers and listeners are probably saying, okay, so why? And what should have been done? And I look seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it in Iowa. You see these TV ratings. 4 million more, as I said, watching the women than the men. I think it's worth repeating a few times because It is such a stunning statistic, guys.
Brennan's book also digs into a cultural sickness allegedly present in some corners of the WNBA, a twisted mindset that mainstream popularity somehow taints the purity of their game. As if millions of new fans, sold-out crowds, and huge TV deals are some kind of shameful sellout. Brennan exposes how this thinking seeped into the way Clark was treated, reportedly allowing her to become a target instead of protecting and promoting her as the future. Players threw cheap shots, coaches allegedly popped off with salty comments, and some media tried to spin it as Clark getting too much attention. Imagine being so backward that you're offended your league finally matters and has a generational star.
Moment on a global scale for our game, for our players.
It's like the fans are absolutely incredible. It's the same when we go on the road. Like there's so many people that are showing up in fever gear. It's really affecting, teams all across our league, which is a really great thing. And, really, I think we're just scratching the surface.
What's painfully obvious, Brennan's book suggests, is the scale of the league's marketing faceplant. They were sitting on a gold mine with Caitlin Clark, generating more buzz than the WNBA had seen in decades, and somehow fumbled it like they'd never heard the word promotion. The merch situation was reportedly a total clown show, the scheduling of her games often baffling choices, and the overall marketing plan felt like it was run by people more comfortable running a lemonade stand than a professional sports league. Brennan's reporting implies this wasn't just accidental incompetence, it was deliberate blind eye syndrome. They reportedly had mountains of data proving Clark was their ticket to the moon, but chose the familiar, safe, small world they knew over the terrifying concept of actual, massive success.
Fans to this league, people that have maybe never watched the WNBA before, and it kind of takes your breath away at points.
Look where the league is now, smack in the middle of Clark's sophomore season, and the TV numbers are still going bonkers whenever she plays. Her jerseys and sneakers vanish instantly. Every arena she visits is sold out. And yet, Brennan's book suggests there's still this awkward vibe, this sense that plenty of folks inside the league would rather the Caitlin Clark circus just disappear so they could go back to their cozy, irrelevant echo chamber. The book suggests the league was on financial life support, praying for anything. And then Caitlin Clark walked in, a lightning bolt of mass appeal, attracting crowds, TV deals, and sponsors. And the league's alleged response? Treating her like a nuisance. Brennan's reporting absolutely torches the league by showing just how deep this dysfunction allegedly runs. This is a case study in how big institutions can get so stuck in outdated ways that they'd rather sabotage the future than embrace change. The WNBA was literally handed a lightning bolt in Caitlin Clark. According to Brennan's findings, all they had to do was protect her from alleged jealousy-driven drama, market her brilliance, and watch the money and respect roll in. Instead, they allegedly chose petty resentment and outdated mindsets. Brennan's book suggests they were effectively offended that success showed up wearing a ponytail and an Iowa jersey. One of the most brutal realities Brennan lays out is how completely wrong some league insiders read the room. They were reportedly smug, thinking their precious brand was too pure to be tainted by a mainstream breakout, confusing staying niche with being noble. They seemingly forgot that pro sports exist to entertain and engage as many people as possible. And fixing this was laughably simple. Just back Caitlin Clark, shield her from petty cheap shots, and surf the tidal wave of attention she brought. Instead, Brennan's book suggests they did the exact opposite, effectively building speed bumps for their own superstar. Brennan also allegedly tears the lid off how new media, the YouTubers, TikTokers, independent reporters, saw all of this coming a mile away while the old guard was reportedly still dozing. These online voices understood Clark's appeal wasn't limited to hardcore fans. She was becoming a pop culture phenomenon. Meanwhile, the WNBA was reportedly stuck in 1998, playing catch-up and fumbling every chance to modernize. From clueless PR blunders to bizarre scheduling choices that hid marquee games in low viewership slots. Brennan makes it painfully obvious this wasn't just an oops moment. It was, at times, almost self-sabotage. They had the easiest slam dunk of their existence with Clark, yet reportedly treated her like a problem to be contained, not the miracle growth engine she clearly was. Even worse, Brennan's book suggests this rotten attitude seeped straight into some locker rooms and coaching staffs. Instead of realizing Clark was good for everyone's bank account, too many players and coaches allegedly acted like her spotlight stole from theirs. Newsflash. It's called a rising tide lifts all boats. Not Caitlin's attention means you sink. Brennan's expose even details how some on-court cheap shots against Clark weren't just competitive fouls, they were reportedly part of an ugly culture determined to cut her down to size. Those hits, those hard fouls, the constant trash talk, Brennan's book suggests that was the league's internal alleged jealousy turning into physical intimidation right on national TV. And where was Commissioner Kathy Engelbert during all this? Where was the person whose entire job is to protect the league's biggest assets and capitalize on growth? According to Brennan's findings, either clueless or complicit. Neither is a good look. Every time a player allegedly got away with a dirty shot on Clark, every time refs seemed to swallow the whistle, it was a glaring sign of an alleged leadership vacuum at the very top. Brennan doesn't pull punches when showing how many easy pivot points the WNBA reportedly had. They could have stepped in when it was obvious Clark was being targeted, rolled out killer ad campaigns, struck new TV deals, signed bigger sponsorships, and turned this into a dynasty era of popularity and revenue. Instead, her book argues they let it rot. Brennan's book also digs into the alleged backstage politics. Turns out there were reportedly whole cliques inside the WNBA terrified that Clark's rise would overshadow their own history or status. Instead of welcoming her, some allegedly actively undercut her, trying to make life harder so she'd struggle to shine. Then, Brennan points out, these same folks sometimes pop up online bragging about how women's basketball finally matters, conveniently forgetting they allegedly spent the previous year undermining the person who arguably made that possible. The hypocrisy, according to Brennan's reporting, is off the charts. Brennan also hammers home how all this alleged petty jealousy didn't just cost Clark, it left money on the table for everyone. Higher ratings, sellout crowds, booming jersey sales that directly translates to bigger salaries, better facilities, and more investment across the entire league. But too many inside the WNBA reportedly acted like Caitlyn's success was a personal threat instead of a payday for them too. Brennan shows how it was often the older generation, players, coaches, execs, who were reportedly most stubborn and resistant to change, while younger players were often more ready to embrace the new era. It's a textbook case of how entrenched thinking can sink even the best opportunities. Bottom line, Christine Brennan's book doesn't just tell the story of Caitlin Clark, it allegedly lays bare the WNBA's epic, almost unbelievable fumble of its greatest chance ever. From alleged petty jealousy and cultural resistance to stunningly clueless leadership and missed marketing opportunities, she exposes it all. Let me know what you think about the WNBA's alleged actions. Do you believe it was more about jealousy or straight-up incompetence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on the next big story. Click the video on the screen now, and we'll see you there.